And I look back to that time and I laugh with, some of the team. Everything seemed like a ginormous problem, right? It was the size of a hot air balloon. But as we kept reminding ourselves every single day, just keep moving forward step by step. And over time, what those problems seemed like as big as hot air balloons gradually became, the size of a penny. And you realize that, these tough times will get easier and easier as we continue them forward.
Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. So happy you're here today. If you're new to the show's pretty simple. I sit down with people in the manufacturing industry and we talk about how they got here, why they've stayed, where they've messed up, what they're proud of, and what they've accomplished. If you've been on this journey with us before, thanks for coming back. So excited that you're here. If you could all take 2 minutes to go into whatever app you're listening to this show on and rate and review the show, I would be eternally grateful. Every time you rate and review the show, it makes it so other people can find us. So you rating the show isn't for my ego. It's not for my guest ego. It's for the show, for other people to be able to see it. So today I'm talking with Todd Smith. Todd is the CFO at AMFT, a global precision manufacturing company. But he didn't really grow up in manufacturing. He grew up in Australia and started his career in banking and corporate law, moved into private equity, and then helped buy a manufacturing company. And then finally, he stayed inside of it to run it as CFO. This is a different kind of story than we're used to being a part of. I'm excited to hear it. So without further ado, Todd Smith, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing?
Jim, thank you very much for having me on. Looking forward to the discussion and can't wait to answer these questions.
Yeah. Awesome. So Todd, we're gonna start with the icebreaker. I hope you remember what the icebreaker was and you had some time to think about it. If not, it'll be even more funny. So Todd, if your life were a movie, what genre would it be? Who plays you? And what's the opening scene?
My life was a movie. I think the genre is comedy.
Okay.
Who plays me? I do love Will Ferrell. I think he's just an awesome actor. And then the opening scene, that's it. I think ultimately it's probably something around just about exceeding expectations, because I think my life has exceeded my expectations, Jim, and the opportunities that I've had.
I like that. I like that a lot. And so just some background for you and anybody who's new to the show, why I asked this question. It paints a good picture for us of who you are, but also how you view yourself, right? So the genre of the movie tells us how you viewed your life as a whole. Has it been action adventure, right? Did you go through dark times, or is it a comedy like yours was? The who plays you really tells us how you view yourself in you're trying to grab an actor and take that person and their skill set and relate it to you. And then finally, the opening scene surrounds. So our lives all start, or any good story starts in media res. And so that media res, that middle of the story point for you is where your story begins. So I love all of this. You're in a comedy, you've had a funny life and moments that are a little quirky and fun. Will Ferrell plays you, and we all know Will Ferrell. He is a hilarious human being, and he starts with this moment of exceeding expectations, and from there it can go backwards or forwards in your story. So I love that. Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you.
So next question is our culture question. We're on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, so we have to talk about culture at least a little bit just to live up to the name, or else I'm going to have to change the name of the show. So Todd, to you, not like a definition you could find out of a dictionary, but to you, what does culture mean to you personally?
To me, it means doing what you say you're going to do. That is, in essence, living up to or delivering on essentially what you say. I borrowed from someone else, a number of years ago, the concept of a say-do ratio. Do you do 100% of what you say. And I think that when you are either leading organizations or working in organizations, it doesn't matter what layer of the organization you sit in. I think people want to know that your say-do ratio is 100%, and that then brings a culture of accountability, and it also brings a culture of no surprises, which in our business is critical.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine in your role as well as CFO, you don't exactly like surprises as CFO, do you?
Jim, as my wife will tell you, I don't even like surprises in my personal life. I think that's overlapped into my professional life. Or don't know which one came first, but I do not like surprises in any facet of my life.
I like it. All right. All right. Fair enough. And I do love that say do ratio. I think it's an important thing, right? Whether, like you said, whether you're pushing a broom or you're running a machine or you're sitting in an office strategizing, if you're not doing what you say you're going to do, you're in trouble. And the level of accountability isn't there, the self accountability, but it also creates a moment where you're unable to hold others accountable. If that say do ratio isn't there, if that self accountability isn't there, keeping others accountable isn't possible at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the one thing. I actually just came off our executive leadership team, and that's the one thing that I stress. It is a team, but also the team below us and the team below that, right, is all looking up, and they mirror whatever behaviors that we exhibit, and that's the big one for me. Is if you say you're going to do it, you damn make sure that you go and do it, and you do it
Awesome.
100% of the time.
I love it. I love it, man. So let's go backwards. We know your media res moment was a big accomplishment. We're going to go back in time from that point of the movie of your life back to Australia. We're going to
Yes.
go in a time machine, jump on an airplane, go back to Australia. What were you doing as a youth, and what did you feel your life was going to look like as you grew up? And then finally, how did you end up in banking and corporate law?
Yeah, Jim, it's a great question. It's why I think the opening scene of my movie is exceeding expectations, because my father ran and owned a large commercial and industrial plumbing business in the town that I grew up in. And so from the age of around 11, I think it was, I was working during my school holidays with his guys as a plumber, and either putting on roofs of very large commercial buildings or for housing as well. And so a lot of my youth was either spent plumbing as a plumber in my spare time and trying to earn money, or separately, we also had land. I grew up on a property, and so it was a lot of fencing, cutting woods. If you think about when I think about that framing of exceeding expectations, at 12 or 14, I thought I was going to be a plumber. I honestly did, and then my dad said to me at around 16, he said, obviously, if you do want to go into the business, you can, but I would like you to go to university and get some other qualifications, and you can come back and do your apprenticeship later on. And so ultimately I did. I went to law school, and I did an accounting and finance degree as well. And then I decided to do some banking. And then I practiced law for a number of years. I started life as a tax lawyer, Jim. And let's just say, being a tax lawyer, it was interesting for some. It wasn't for me. So then the opportunity came to move into later on when we moved to the US, moving to a private equity firm, and then go on from there.
So did life pull you in that direction? Let me back up real quick, because I have something to say about growing up in Australia. One of my favorite movies ever, like in the top 10, is Man from Snowy River.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about having land, I envision Todd Smith on a horse riding down this hill of land in Australia, with like a plumber's wrench in your hand. If I were to envision this in my head, that's what I see. Is there any truth to that at all? I mean, or am I just daydreaming in my own head?
Well, no, Gentleman's my dad. I did ride horses as a younger. I did have a horse. As my dad, if he was on here, he would tell you, I only rode it. There was two speeds for me riding a horse: as fast as possible or stop. Right. But I didn't quite have the Akubra or the Dryzerbone jacket that they wear in the band from Snowy River. But did ride horses, and then also as my youth took over, got into other sports. But it was definitely had the plumbing's wrench
All right.
in the head for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to know I'm not that far off then.
No, you're very close.
Hey, I like that. That's a compliment at this point in my day. So was the move to private equity? I mean, you deliberately moved to the U.S., I assume. Was the move to private equity a deliberate move on your part, or were you pulled
I
into
actually
it?
joined it at the time as a lawyer, right, to help them.
Okay.
And then shortly after that, I moved on to the investment side, given my background in both law and banking. It was a really interesting time because that was nearly, we're talking 12 years ago now. And the private equity industry was very different to what it is today. And so the opportunity to learn and develop a new skill set was too much or too good an opportunity to pass up. It's also then those skills that I learned have then helped me in terms of being able to bring what is AMFT or Associated Metal Forming Technologies today together as a group and a platform.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask a question, Todd, and we can skip over it, and I can delete me even asking the question if it's something that you don't like. But people have complicated feelings when it comes to private equity, right? And I'm saying complicated feelings because I think that's the nicest way that I can put that.
Yes.
And so part of that stems from private equity coming in. I'm not saying this is your group or the group that you work for, but coming in, and sometimes we see plants close and people lose jobs. How did you, from somebody on the inside, view that process, and did it weigh on you at all in your time in private equity early on?
So I'll start with stepping back. So I do love the question. I also get it from our customers, right? It's near and dear to them because I do believe that there's connotations to your point around private equity and just what is the feeling of coming in, cutting costs, shutting into plants or stores and look focused on EBITDA. But what I say to folks is that there's private equity and there's private equity. And each of them have their own strategy and they're unique in their own ways on how they go about executing that strategy. The private equity firm that owns Associated Metal Forming Technologies is One Equity Partners. They are the former private equity arm of JP Morgan. Their strategy is not cutting costs or cutting heads or shutting down plants. We have, since the legacy business Associated Spring and Heinz Hanging got acquired from the Barnes Group in April 2024, they invested around 40 million of capital into new equipment and machinery. So they're focused on growth because they see that there's an opportunity in the market with the customers and with our capabilities to grow. And so they're not focused on Todd, how many hens do you have at that manufacturing site? Why do you have some? That's not Ante or Jack's focus. They're very much about, as I said, growing the top line. They were actually on a phone call with me with a customer this past Monday, talking about introducing themselves because, as I said, this particular customer wants to know who are the guys behind AMFT. And so really enjoyed the conversation. The customer understands their strategy and their position and is very much supportive of continuing to grow their business with us. So, but every private equity firm, as I said, is different. And I think my advice to anyone who is thinking about partnering with private equity is I look at it as a little bit like a marriage, right? You need to date first. You really need to understand it as people because they are people, right? There's names. Everyone knows the big names, but essentially it's about the people you're day to day and you want to have a really good constructive working relationship with those guys where you can pick up the phone and have a really open discussion about where the business is going, what you're doing, and align with their views. But because it's very hard, Jim, to get divorced once the investment is made.
Sure. That makes total sense. And so, Todd, how has your view of the people and within these companies changed? How has your view changed because your role has changed
Yes.
from going from when you started in private equity, more from evaluating for acquisition to operations with internal? Has your view of people changed over that course of change of your career?
No, it hasn't, right? And certainly when I was on the investment side in a private equity firm, you want to spend a lot of time with your management teams, helping them, right? But helping them where it makes sense, not telling them how to do their job, but saying, where can we be a force multiplier for you, for the business? Because ultimately you're both align, management and the private equity firm, to create value. Because essentially, Jim, I think the other thing a lot of people don't understand, I had to explain it to our organization when we first acquired the business, is the money, for example, that one equity partners investor or private comes from pension plans largely. And those pension plans are investing money on behalf of firefighters, policemen, nurses, right? Teachers, as I said. And so those guys, the private equity firms, have a fiduciary duty on that money. It's not their money that they came upon. It's money of people who are expecting a return for their retirement. And so essentially that capital that the private equity firm is investing is, I hate to say it was the word, is responsible for dreams, because people, those firefighters, those nurses, those police officers, they have an expectation when they retire, there's going to be sufficient money for them to live that retirement life that they want. And so when you're in that role as on the investment side of the firm, you are very focused on making sure that that capital is being spent wisely and allocated wisely to get the best possible return as well. On the flip side, when you're in the seat that I'm in today as president and CFO of AMFT, it's no different, right? It's knowing that that money is going into either capital equipment for growth, maintenance, for equipment, or acquiring new capabilities where we can offer something new for our customers or in a different location, and also the safety of our employees, which is our number one priority. So from my vantage point, the mindset isn't different, but it's really about being very clear and aligned with your private equity team, and it's communication, right? I talk about it. Anything otherwise is just a failure to communicate. It's very easy to pick up the phone, and that's when I talk about people who are thinking about taking private equity money, go on those speed dates, spend time together, right? Either at a dinner, at a coffee, or just in the office together, because that's when you really see, who you're working with and what they're going to be like if something doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go, and you will have that deep relationship that you can pick up the phone.
Is there ever any awkwardness, I guess, for a lack of a better term, from the employees that work for AMFT when they understand that what is funding them is something that they'll never have, right? So this pension group behind the private equity, yet their financial future is somewhat less solid and solidified. I'm not saying specifically AMFT. I'm just talking in general, right? If for manufacturing, a lot of pensions went away a long time ago, right? And they played the gamble game with the 4Ks. I've seen people be able to retire early because they got extremely lucky. I've also seen people have to work extremely late in their careers because their 4 didn't perform.
Yeah.
So is the knowledge out there that the employees are working for a private equity that's funded by pensions that they'll never have, or am I just reading into that totally backwards?
I'd probably say it's probably reading into it more than they do, because I think the important thing I hear from actually our employees is that they love the fact that our owner, One Equity Partners, is investing in new equipment.
Got it.
When they enable them to do their job, more efficiently or more effectively. We have works councils and unions across our sites across the globe,
Okay.
and to them we do provide good benefits
Okay.
as well. And so I think for them it's really about, hey, Todd, when's that new coiler turning up, right? When's that new press coming in, or that's that excites our team, because at the end of the day, that's what they want to do to win and win day in, day out at executing the job.
Yeah. And I think that having that excellent benefits package helps with that, right? It
Yes.
lessens the need to focus on their future or their situation, and they can ultimately focus on the work at hand, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think for them, we've got folks who have been with us over 30 odd years and in the business, and that speaks, testament not only to their talent, knowledge, and expertise, but also to the group, right? In terms of being able to offer them something where they want to invest that significant amount of time with us and continue to do so as we continue to grow and
I love it. I love it. So walk us through a little bit of that Associated Spring deal for One Equity Partners. Associated Spring had been part of the Barnes Group
correct.
before the purchase by One Equity. What was your role in that process, and walk us through the process as a whole?
Yeah, so I think the opportunity came to One Equity in late 2023, and uh, a mutual friend of mine and the One Equity team connected us as they were looking to bring someone on with experience. And so I started working with them on the diligence, and ultimately the transaction got signed in early 2024 to acquire Associated Spring and Heinz in Switzerland. We then, between January and April, spent a lot of time with the Barnes team and also the leadership teams at the various sites to get very detailed around more of what I call the middle and back office functions: accounting, finance, HR, IT, to understand that when we lifted the company out effectively, that we had the right processes, systems, etc., to continue operating the business, because that was a big priority for both sides, both the Barnes team and the LVP team, call it, to make sure the business could still function and ship product off the dock to our customers. And we were ready, and ultimately in early April, we closed on the transaction. It was a very really exciting day, but it was also, I think, a little bit of a bit of sadness, because Associated Spring was the legacy business of the Barnes Group, and it's what the Barnes Group grew up on. Associated Springs, is nearly, it's 168 years old, and so it was as I said, there was a little bit of sadness in that because it was the legacy, but ultimately it was the right decision, I think, for Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
It's on their strategy and their priorities, and so we had the opportunity to acquire a great business with a lot of talented people and really great customer base, and then go on and build a great platform now that has 9 manufacturing sites across the world. And we continue to see work, I should say, with our customers to grow with them wherever they need us.
I like that. So when you first stepped in as president and CFO into this organization, what was that first day like?
Yeah. So I think, so I started as CFO in April 2020. It was exciting, right? But when you do a carve out, I will say our hair was on fire. And I look back to that time and I laugh with some of the team. Every everything seemed like a ginormous problem, right? It was the size of a hot air balloon. But as we kept reminding ourselves every single day, just keep moving forward step by step. And over time, what those problems seemed like as big as hot air balloons gradually became the size of a penny. And you realize that these tough times will get easier and easier as we continue forward, because we had to stand everything up from independent IT systems and bank accounts and just forms, and communicate with customers that please stop paying that bank account, please pay this bank account. We have over 6,000 customers of various sizes, and so it's just a lot of tactical work that needed to get done. But at the time, it was one of the toughest years of my professional life, but it was also probably one of the most rewarding when we got to year end of 2024, and we really stood the business up and the company up, and it was operating, and as an independent company, fully separated from the Barnes Group.
I love that. And so, as part of that toughest year of your career, were there times that you felt like you were in over your head?
Of course, Jim, because I'd never done a carve out before, and you are honestly learning by doing. And we had a lot of the OEP team who have done a number of these, and they were really great and patient with me, and giving me great guidance. And I've also got another set of friends, friends who really were good at just bouncing ideas off. And then ultimately, I think it comes down to having a great team, right? Our team were invested to make it happen and committed to just getting it done. It didn't matter who did it, as long as it got done. And that's what I really appreciated the most, because I think that's what I also think was the most rewarding, because it was such a great team effort to get it done.
Awesome. How did you, I mean, you mentioned earlier that, you've got 30 plus years out of some of the staff that's been at Associated Spring. How did you, as a banker, a lawyer, CFO, a private equity guy, build trust with the team that had existed for so long within those four walls?
I think listening to them, getting on site. So I spent going out and spending time at the manufacturing sites and sitting down, as I said, spending time in town halls, but also building those relationships that today, while I'm here, I just got pinged by our site leader in Mexico, right? And she is someone who knows, right? Ping Todd on Teams, right? Or call me. And I think that's, where you build that trust by being approachable, listening to them, and listening to the team, and learning, right? To your point, I didn't grow up in manufacturing, and you've got people who have done it for 30, 40 years. And so you have to listen, and you have to understand, and also get the context of the why. And I think, and as I was coming into the president role, I took over as president in September last year, I think the biggest thing I tell the team, and I make sure I do it. I don't always do it perfectly, but I try to, is give the why. Why are we going in that direction? Why is this our strategy? Why do we want to do that? Because I think then people understand, why you're asking them to do that, or why we're doing that.
How important has building the right team around you been to your success as CFO, top level leader, and now as president, coming from that background where you didn't grow up in the industry, right? How important is building that right team?
Critical. And I think, to me, I like to think that's one of my strengths, is really being able to build great teams. I don't in any facet profess to know everything, but for anything, about a range of topics. But it's about having the right team around you and the right people in the right roles that can drive and execute the strategy, and also that can give you honest feedback and have an open dialogue with you. And that, to me, is critical, because we've got a pipeline of 3 more acquisition targets. And so we are, every single day, we're sprinting at various speeds, but we're still sprinting. And so I need to know that my team is both down in the weeds with their business or site leaders and their commercial leaders, but at the same time, are working with me on the bigger strategic topics. So the team is.
I love it. When things go right for you, and it sounds like you've seen success not only throughout your career, but specifically now in your roles with Associated Spring and AMFT. How does that feel when things go right? What is the feeling that you have when things are just clicking and you've got the right team in place and the culture's what you intend it to be and all those things? How does that feel for you, Todd Smith?
I think it feels great, right? And I know that's very cliche to say. Great, but great in terms of you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning refreshed. You're not dreaming about work in the middle of the night, right? Or thinking about work. And I think that's where uh, this job, because is all consuming, right? My wife will tell you, I think a lot about it. We have 1,267 employees around the world. 1,000 of them are, directly involved in the production of mission critical components. My number one priority is 1,267 people go home each night safe and sound of their family. When you get that, doing that, and also to your point, when everything is moving in sync and the team is in sync, and the organization is sync, you feel great, right? You go to bed, as I said, feeling great and have a very good night's sleep.
I love it. I love it. What do you think the biggest misconception about the manufacturing industry is from the general public?
I think the biggest misconception is it's not sexy like tech. I think that's the biggest misconception. And I think it's a very, very wrong viewpoint, because you can go into our facilities, which is what I love about manufacturing. And so that's why I love my prior role when we built cell phone towers at Tillman. You can touch it and you can feel it, right? You can hold it in your hand and you know that, whether that mission critical part's going in the jet engine of an airplane or to a medical device or the transmission in your truck, that's really cool. That's way cooler than selling software, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so I think when I talk to people and they ask you, what do you do? And you explain to them that we're putting together springs and stampings and, engineered assemblies, the complexity of those parts and the mission criticality of those parts, and where they go, they're like, oh, wow. And I think that's the oh, wow, right? And people don't appreciate about manufacturing. I'm sitting here talking to you on a screen, right? That got manufactured somewhere. That's got components in there that are wow. When you see those components being made, I was I was in Europe last week visiting a customer and seeing their soldering of the motherboards that go into cars. That was cool, right? Like you don't get, as I said, you don't get that, Jim, selling, well, I'm not going to name the brand, but software packages or AI, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's the future, but it's not. I think manufacturing is sexy and cool when you can touch it, you can feel it, and it has real world application.
I love it. And do you feel like those 1,267 souls share that level of pride that you have for what you are making? Is that the goal?
Yes, absolutely. You walk around as I said, our 9 manufacturing facilities and also our assembly plant that we have in Thailand, and you see those folks are extremely proud. And the reason I know that is because they're all dressed immaculately, right? They're clean and they take pride in their own appearance. And so when they're taking pride in their own appearance and the appearance of the site, they care about quality and they have that passion for what they do day in, day out for us.
I just interviewed a owner about a couple weeks ago, and I asked him how he can tell that culture shows up on his floor, and he said, I can tell, and this is a 30 to 40 person shop, right? Not massive. The way he can tell if his culture is healthy is if the toilet paper is replaced, if there's dishes in the sink that are dirty, if the water cooler has been replaced or not, and how people dress. So I think there's a lot of base for your statement there.
Yes.
Todd, in your opinion, as somebody who has come in and adopted this industry and loves it and feels a pride that comes from this industry, what's the future of manufacturing look like?
So I think the future of manufacturing is really exciting, Jeff, because certainly there is opportunity to leverage AI and automation to help our employees do tasks that they need to, from a safety standpoint, we need to stop them doing. Right? There are certain you know steps in the manufacturing process that I don't want our employees doing anymore. Right? And so I would rather automate those. I also think there's opportunities to, when looking at it, to put in uh, safety glasses with the cameras, right, to help them perform the task in the safest possible way. So I think from a just a technology standpoint, there is absolutely ways to help our people do tasks in a much more efficient, effective, and safer way. I think there from a macroeconomic standpoint, I think the future is also going to look very much where you have a really localized regional manufacturing footprints, because local customers now, you want that capability or that product in a certain market, but they also want it in another market or another country. And so I think the idea that manufacturing is going to go to all be in one region, no, I don't think that's happening. I actually think you will see an expansion in certain markets of manufacturing capability where yes, you'll have Asia, you'll have the Americas, you'll have EMEA. And I was talking to a customer last week, they're talking about North Africa. And they said to us, would you think about North Africa? So I'm actually really excited about the future, that it's going to grow, and it's going to be, there's not going to be winners and losers in terms of the geographical footprint of manufacturing. It's going to be, no, you need it in all regions because of the supply chain resiliency that our customers talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you answered that, Todd, in a global perspective as well as the Americas and specifically the US, right? Because I think that there's a lot of talk about almost a zero-sum game when it comes to manufacturing capabilities and dominance, quote unquote. And
Yes.
I think that puts organizations, it puts economies at risk if we start to talk about that zero-sum game. And we need to start talking more about exactly what you were just talking about, is that integration of supply chains in a regional area and expanding the footprint of manufacturing as a whole. So I love that point. That was definitely one of many mic drop moments you've had in today's conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Todd, what haven't I asked you so far? This is my favorite question. It's the last question of the episode, but what haven't I asked you that you want to talk about?
I think it's really about that. I think, Jim, about investment, right? Today, you see a lot of the headlines around manufacturing and the connotation around manufacturing, I should say, are sort of shrinking, if you like, in certain markets or certain countries, and also being an unloved sector, so to speak, for people to build a career in. And I think for me, I look at it as in two ways. One, we have people who've got 30, 40 years of experience with us. And so the investment that we make in around technology and automation and AI isn't about replacing those people or replacing our workforce. It's augmenting that talent, because you can't replace the tool makers in our 9 sites that have got that 20 or 30 years with a robot, right? Those guys, that specialized knowledge they have, but we have to find a way to pass that knowledge on to the next generation. And I think the investment needs to be made globally, not just from an AMFT perspective, but from government into apprenticeship programs to have for this next generation coming through and wanting to get into manufacturing and want to expand their knowledge base, either being a toolmaker or a setter on a piece of equipment. But they're fundamental skills that are needed. And we have an absolute shortage of talent, even no matter how raw, coming through into manufacturing. I think people don't realize that if you don't have talent coming through, you will see manufacturing facilities close because they can't operate. And when you can't operate, that means you have a constriction of supply. And the constriction of supply means prices go up. And so, yes, we can talk about the geopolitical and macroeconomic side of price and things like that. But when I think about investment in people going into and committing going into manufacturing and finding a path forward and it being looked on, I don't want the industry to be looked down upon. It is a critical function that the people don't understand or don't realize the criticality of what manufacturing does. I was talking to a gentleman last week who manufactures the packaging for confectionery and candy. Like if he doesn't do that, have that role, the prices on the shelf for the candy for Halloween, that's going up. And I think that's where we need to be having that discussion around investment and investing in the next generation to be attractive for them to go into it.
Yeah. And to me, I love the entire answer. To me, one of the most important parts is that knowledge transfer of what you said, right? We can set apprenticeship programs up. We can get young people, and we're seeing that right now where we have done a good job of filling the skills gap, as it were, in getting young people interested in careers in manufacturing. These young kids are then hitting the job market and, they're up against needing 3 to 5 years experience. And if we're not giving them at least the knowledge to have walking in the door or through apprenticeship programs, through some sort of on the job training, that 3 to 5 years of experience will run them right out the door.
Correct.
So I think that's such a great answer. And I think it's bipartisan. You brought up the climate right now. And I think in the US, it's got to be a bipartisan thing. I think that manufacturing for a long time has also been a political bargaining chip used by both sides. Yeah. That not one side or the other has their hands clean in that. Right. And I think we need to just shut up and put our money where our mouth is for the most part.
Do what we say we're going to do. It's my say-do ratio.
My gosh. Way to bring it back full circle. I can't believe I didn't do that on my own. That's why you're here as my guest today, Todd. And on that note, I'm going to wrap the episode. Thank you so much for being here, Todd. This was an awesome conversation.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Todd Smith. Like I mentioned earlier, people have complicated feelings when it comes to private equity. But the reason I had Todd on, I have a lot of private equity folks who reach out to me. Not everybody makes a cut. I had Todd on because after talking with him in our pre-interview, I knew he was one of the people who looks out for the people who work for him, right? And in a world that has private equity, we've got to start embracing the people like Todd who are in private equity, who do treat the people right, who aren't just looking to part off companies and ignore the souls that they're responsible for. So Todd, my hat's off to you in what you do, the way you've gone about it, OEP and the way they've gone about it. Very happy that you're part of this industry and very happy that OEP is making investment into the industry.
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up, leave a rating, leave a review, write in the comment as a review. Todd showed us that not all private equity sucks. Again, not for my ego, not for Todd's ego, but this is for other people to find the show. If you've been on the journey with us before, thanks again for being here. If this was your first time, man, what an awesome episode to experience for the first time. There are 150 other episodes that you can check out on whatever platform you're on. Check them out. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep making things.